astrology. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Mali.
And I wanted first of all to compare this to an event that happened recently in October, and that was in Abu Simbel temple. Exactly, we were also expecting the sun to touch the temple and go through the temple. If you can compare the events, the Abu Simbel temple as opposed to Al-Karanak temple now.
Comparing events and resembling them, those three amazing events with others as well, one in Faiyum, one in Karanak temples, and one in the main temple of Abu Simbel, as you already mentioned. That is a proof. Just to compare them and resemble them as a proof that it was not by coincidence, it was not by chance, it was not by luck, it was all kind of organized when they were building these temples or carving these temples. Because Abu Simbel is a carved temple, carved hewn off the cliffs, not built. And that's another genius thing. There are three similarities in the three events and other events as well, because also they figured out, there was a historian who figured out some years ago that there was also a sun ray going through over the shoulder of the Sphinx. So here is another event that we can celebrate, but we'll have to prove it and to be 100% sure about that. And I saw the documentary, and I think it makes lots of sense. Now, when we look at Abu Simbel, we know that February 22nd, and it was originally 21st, became 22nd, and October 21st, it became 22nd after they moved 4 meters above its original level, when they were trying to save it from the Nasser Lake during the construction of the high dam. The interesting thing about what's happening today, or what happened already today, because it's already done, the sun is rising, still rising over the pylons. The interesting thing about the scene today is that you have, when you are entering the main entrance, one of the main entrances of Karnak temples, not temple, right?
Excuse me.
No. I'm correcting myself as well. So temples, amazingly enough, the word temples, that S at the end of this term temple is pretty important for one reason. Many kings came, and many high priests came and went, and many workers came and went, hundreds and thousands of them, through the history of Karnak temples. Interesting thing is that every king will come, will add a construction, a temple, a sanctuary, an obelisk, statues, and so on and so forth. So, for you to come after me and add a construction, you have to be following that phenomena of today without changing it. So the building that you're going to add to my building should be going along with the same alignment without changing it.
Specific plan.
Specific plan is done here. And it went on, the amazing thing, that it went on for hundreds of years. So nobody's going to come like after 600 years and change something in this phenomena, which means that this astronomical phenomena was a belief. It was something dealing with religion. It's something to do with the cult of the temples of Amun-Ra, the deity, the mythological deity that the temple is dedicated to. Amun-Ra, wrongly named Amun-Ra, nothing called Amun. Amun-Ra, you can see his designs, you can see his ram-headed sphinxes when you're entering one of the main entrances of the temple, which your camera is actually standing there. Your camera is standing right in front of that double avenue of sphinxes, leading to what we like to call the pylon. You are looking, when you are looking at the Karnak pylons, the pylon is that tower-like construction that you see when you're entering a temple.
Right.
One tower to the right, one tower to the left. Right in front of them is a double avenue of ram-headed sphinxes. And why am I saying ram like that in a very kind of dramatic way? Because the ram was the animal shape of the mythological deity Amun-Ra. So when Amun-Ra is performed in form of an animal, like Horus is the falcon, like Anubis is the jackal, or the fox of the desert. So every one of these will have a bird or will have an animal. So Amun-Ra will become the ram. And that's why ram-headed sphinxes for protection, to protect the king with his entourage when they are entering through this main huge tower-like constructions we call pylons today. So this pylon on the right, this pylon on the left, and then the sun is going to come from all the way from the east, shining, and the sun rays will be all along that alignment main vestibule of the temple to go out from those, through those, or the middle of those two pylons. Now, why is he doing that?
I was just going to ask you, what is the point of that?
Exactly. I mean, it's a huge thing to do for 4 or 5 minutes of the sun being aligned with those kind of two huge pylons. This is the most important religious aspect of ancient Egypt. That is the celebration of the winter solstice, and then in June will be the winter solstice. Solstice is an expression we use today, and that is, we call it in Arabic, al-inqilab al-shitwi, inqilab, where the sun, the word in Arabic means the reverse of the sun. And al-inqilab al-shitwi, or the winter solstice, the word solstice is Latin originally. Sol is the sun, sistre is standing still. And that's where the sun will literally stand still. In a place in the sun, and that is a well-studied kind of phenomena in astronomy and the movement of the planets and the moon and the sun. So we found out that the ancient Egyptians, geniusly enough, studied that, knew that, and built that temple all the way through that important some minutes where the sun is going to rest, where in between, precisely as you showed, right there. That is the vestibule I'm talking about that you are seeing now. Right? Now, what is this going to do? What's this going to form? What is the aspect? What's the background? What's the religious concept of this? The pylon to the left and the pylon to the right, every tower of these is actually symbolizing a hill in the ancient Egyptian mythology. Okay. And that hill, we refer to it in Egyptology as the primeval hill. Primeval hill where the creation of the universe took place. So the idea of the creation. Now, the solar disk, which brings and provides life for the ancient Egyptian, light, energy, warmth, agriculture, you name it.
It was everything.
Everything for the ancient Egyptians. So, once you succeed as a priest of the temple, as an organizer of that festivity, in that particular time of the year, once you succeed in putting the sun and those two pylons in an alignment together to form an ancient Egyptian term, an ancient Egyptian word called Akhet. Akhet is the name of the game today. This, what you are looking at, and when you looked at when the sun was in between, that is the Akhet. What's the Akhet? Akhet is a hieroglyphic word, means the horizon. And how did he write it? How did he draw it in hieroglyphs? He drew it in the form of a hill, and another hill, and a solar disk in between.
In between, exactly what we see today.
Okay, so how am I going to build this hill? Am I going to bring a hill? No. The ancient Egyptians would build the pylon. And that pylon will be two things. One, protection of the temple. High priests will be going through internal still cases with opening windows where they're going to look at the performances and the festivities and the king coming and going. And also it will be a place for flag staffs where the flags are going to be furling and flying all over the place to celebrate, and everybody outside the temple will, the flags are out, you know, there is a celebration today. So that's the practical side of it. And then the religious side of it, which is now we are waiting for the primeval hills to get the sun in between, and this will be the birth of the sun. And as a matter of fact, today we are calling it rebirth of the sun, because the sun is going to set every day, ancient Egyptian thought. And setting of the sun means death. That's why sun sets in the west, so death is always in the west. Valley of the Kings in the west, Valley of the Queens in the west, where they were buried, Valley of the Nobles in the west, Valley of the Workers in the west, Pyramids of Giza is in the west.
It's very interesting.
It's the idea of the sun is going to die, and I'm like the sun. The king and the people will be like the sun. We are going to, unfortunately, one day, leave here. Leave this Akhet. Leave this horizon. But not to despair, because we are going to head ourselves towards another horizon. And the second horizon there is the afterlife horizon. So literally and practically, the ancient Egyptian, according to this kind of belief, did not die, but 70 days all through his eternal life. If you are a believer of such concept in ancient Egypt. Why? Because those were the 70 days of mummification. Only in these 70 days that you are dead. Before that you are alive, and after that you are resurrected.
Wow.
The sun was resurrected today. So this is the rebirth of the sun. And then it seems that he noticed that the sun is the closest, because today, you know that the world is a northern hemisphere and a southern hemisphere. Today, in our we are in the northern hemisphere, Egypt. So the northern hemisphere today is the shortest day of the year.
Oh, really?
While in the southern hemisphere, this is the longest, because there is summer somewhere in the south. we are enjoying our
very,
freezing
very
weather,
cold
very
winter.
cold winter,
Yes.
and somebody is like going in t-shirts, having suntans everywhere. We don't envy anybody or something. So
We've